I never thought my life could be torn apart by a lie so easily believed. One false accusation and everything I knew, my family, my stability, even my reputation, crumbled beneath my feet like sand. If you had told me a year ago that my own parents would throw me out without a second thought, I would have laughed in disbelief. But here I am, still trying to process the wreckage, wondering how love can turn so quickly into betrayal. It all started with Melissa. She was my best friend, Ryan's younger sister. A quiet, often distant girl with a history of mental health struggles that everyone in our small Oregon town knew about but never really talked about. I'd known their family since I was a kid. We went to the same schools, played on the same streets. There was nothing romantic between us, nothing at all. So imagine my shock when, out of nowhere, I got a message from Melissa saying she was pregnant and that I was the father. For a moment, I thought it was a sick joke. I stared at my phone in disbelief, waiting for the punchline that never came. Because there was no joke. She was serious, completely convinced. Except for one very important fact. I had never been with her, not even close. I tried to reason with her, gently at first. Told her she must be confused, mistaken, that there was absolutely no way I could be the father. But she kept insisting, again and again, like if she said it enough, it would somehow become true. I didn't know whether to be angry or scared. Was this her illness talking? Was she trying to manipulate me? I didn't know, but I refused to play along. When I asked her to take a prenatal paternity test, she flat out refused. Said it was demeaning, said I was abandoning her and the baby. She laid on the guilt thick, as if I owed her something, but I stood firm. I told her I wouldn't sign anything, wouldn't claim anything, unless there was proof. That's when the real nightmare began. A few weeks later, my parents found out. I still don't know if Melissa told them herself or if it was town gossip, but the result was the same. They were livid, not at her, at me. I tried to explain. God, did I try? I sat across from them at the kitchen table where I'd eaten 1,000 meals and poured my heart out. Told them I wasn't the father. Told them Melissa was lying or confused or something. But they didn't want to hear it. All they saw was a son who had screwed up and didn't want to take responsibility. They called me a coward, a disappointment. My mom cried. My dad shouted. And I just sat there, stunned, realizing that they had already made up their minds. I reminded them, pleaded even, that I hadn't even been in the same state when Melissa said she got pregnant. I had been visiting friends in Arizona for over a month, but logic didn't matter. Facts didn't matter. They just shook their heads, convinced I was making excuses. From that moment on, I became a pariah in my own family. Every call, every text, every visit turned into a lecture, a demand. Do the right thing. Be a man. Step up. I was being crucified for a crime I didn't commit, and no one, not even the people who raised me, would listen. It got worse, so much worse. 6 months in, they gave me an ultimatum. Acknowledge the child as mine, or be cut out of the family entirely. And when I refused, they disowned me. Losing your family feels like losing a part of your identity. One minute, you're someone's son, part of something bigger, tethered by history and blood. The next, you're no one. A ghost. A stranger they'd rather erase than believe. After my parents disowned me, I went through a stretch of time that I can only describe as hollow. I wasn't just angry. I wasn't just sad. I was numb. Waking up every morning felt like dragging myself out of a pit. I'd sit in silence, staring at my phone, hoping maybe, just maybe, one of them would text something like, "We're sorry, let's talk." But nothing came. They really meant it. They'd cut me off. The birth came and went without a word. I found out through mutual friends that Melissa had gone into labor, and my mom was at the hospital holding the baby like it was her own grandchild. It was surreal. I wasn't even told. I wasn't invited. I wasn't acknowledged. They had built this entire reality around a lie, and I had been written out of it like I was the villain. I knew what I had to do. I had to prove the truth. It took legal intervention, something I never thought I'd need in a situation like this. But eventually, with enough persistence and the right lawyer, I secured a court-ordered paternity test. When the results came back and showed 0% chance of paternity, I felt like I could finally breathe. But that breath didn't last long. I sent the results to my parents. I expected, hoped, that they would call, shocked, apologetic, that they'd say, "We were wrong." Instead, they sent money. My dad mailed me a check for a few $100s. No note, no apology, just money. As if a dollar amount could undo months of betrayal and abandonment. Then came the voicemails. My mom crying. My dad stammering through half-hearted apologies. We were confused. It was a stressful time. Let's move on. Move on? As if trust was a rug they could sweep this all under. I kept the money. Yeah, I did. Call it petty, but after everything they put me through, it felt like they owed me something. But I didn't call them back. I didn't respond. I wasn't ready. And truthfully, I didn't think I ever would be. But the damage wasn't done yet. In our small town, rumors travel faster than facts. Despite the paternity test, people started whispering that I had faked it, that I had pulled strings to get off the hook. Melissa, in her desperation, told anyone who would listen that I had manipulated the results, that I was a liar and a coward, and had left her alone with a child. Suddenly, I wasn't just disowned, I was hated. By neighbors, acquaintances, even old friends. I'd walk into the grocery store and feel eyes burning into my back. People would glance at me, whisper, shake their heads. It didn't matter that the truth was printed in black and white. People believed the version of the story that made them feel righteous. Even my ex-girlfriend Samantha messaged me asking why Melissa had reached out to her, dredging up the past and painting me as some heartless man who abandoned a child. I hadn't spoken to Samantha in years, but now I had to explain everything, again, to someone who wasn't even part of my life anymore. I was exhausted. I blocked Melissa on every platform. I told Ryan, her brother, that I needed space. He understood. He always had. But it still felt like one more thread in my life had snapped. I thought that was the end, but it wasn't. Just when I thought I could finally reclaim some kind of peace, rebuild what was left of my life, it all escalated again. Cutting Melissa off should have been the end of it. Severing ties with my parents should have granted me relief. But in reality, it only stirred a deeper hornet's nest. They weren't done with me. It started with messages, not from Melissa, not from my parents, but from people I hadn't spoken to in years, old classmates, distant relatives, acquaintances who barely knew me. Each message was laced with the same tone of false concern. "Hey, your mom told me you're not doing well. She's really worried. Your dad reached out. He says you've been distant and might need help." They were painting me as unstable, as broken, as the one who needed to apologize. I was stunned. These were people I barely kept in touch with, and yet now they were being mobilized as messengers in some twisted PR campaign. My parents were trying to rewrite the story, make me look like the aggressor, the one who abandoned them, when the truth was, they had pushed me out. Then came the final straw. They called my boss. Yes, my parents, two people who raised me, who supposedly loved me, called my job and told my employer they were worried about my mental health and wanted to make sure I was okay. Humiliating doesn't even begin to cover it. My boss called me into his office, concerned but professional, and asked me if everything was all right at home. I could barely speak. My throat tightened, my hands went cold. I had to explain the entire situation, from the accusation to the restraining order, in the most composed tone I could muster, while trying not to crumble with rage and embarrassment. He was supportive, thankfully. Apologized for even bringing it up, but the damage was done. My parents had crossed a boundary I didn't even know existed. That same night, I called my lawyer. We started the process of filing a restraining order. I hated that it had come to this, that I had to treat my own parents like a threat. But what choice did I have? They were harassing me, manipulating others, interfering with my job, my mental health, my peace. The process was grueling. Forms, affidavits, court appearances. But when the order finally went through, barring them from contacting me, from coming near my home or workplace, it felt like lifting a weight off my soul. For the first time in months, I slept through the night, but they didn't let go quietly. One day, I came home and found my car keyed. One word, carved in all caps across the passenger door: liar. I didn't see who did it. I had no proof, but I didn't need it. No one else had the motive. No one else had the grudge. My parents were the only ones still obsessed enough to lash out like that. I filed a police report, but nothing came of it. Just another scar. Another reminder that the people who are supposed to protect you can sometimes do the most damage. I stopped parking at home, left my car at a friend's. I installed cameras. I started living like a fugitive, watching my own back, always waiting for the next attack. But eventually, the silence came. And when it did, that real, full silence, I finally began to heal. Healing, it turns out, isn't a straight line. It's not a switch you flip or a moment where everything suddenly feels okay. It's slow, uneven. Some days feel normal, even hopeful. Others, they hit you like a wave of grief for something that never even died but just changed. I started reclaiming pieces of my life. Work became a sanctuary. My closest friends, the ones who didn't judge, who stood by me even when they didn't have to, kept me grounded. I got back into running, reading, therapy. I learned to sit with the silence instead of fearing it. But peace is fragile. One afternoon, a letter showed up in the mail, a thick envelope from a law firm in California, one I'd never heard of. My stomach dropped before I even opened it. Deep down, I already knew, and I was right. My parents were suing me. Yes, suing their own son. The claim? Emotional distress. They were demanding financial compensation for the pain and suffering I had supposedly caused them by cutting off contact and destroying their image in the family. They accused me of alienation, of slandering them, of willfully isolating myself to hurt them. I sat on the floor of my apartment with that letter in my hand, and for the first time in this whole ordeal, I laughed. Not because it was funny, nothing about it was funny, but because it had reached a level of absurdity I couldn't even comprehend. I'd been disowned, slandered, harassed, and now sued by the same people who turned their backs on me without hesitation. My lawyer was furious. She told me she'd seen a lot of family drama, but this was another level. We prepared to fight back, collected every document, the paternity test, the restraining order, copies of the harassing messages, even screenshots of the voicemail my father had left begging me to come back for dinner. Evidence of manipulation, gaslighting, emotional blackmail. Meanwhile, the social fallout started again. Aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't seen in years. They're your parents. Why are you doing this to them? Just make peace already. The same tired chorus. No one asked what they had done to me. No one asked if I was okay. They just wanted the illusion of family unity, a nice, quiet resolution, even if it meant throwing me under the bus one more time. I started blocking people, shutting doors, burning bridges. I never wanted to cross again anyway. When the court date came, I sat on the bench in a collared shirt and tie, across from the two people who had once held my hands when I was sick, who once cheered for me at school concerts. And now, they looked at me like I was a stranger, like I was their enemy. They cried, played the victims, told the judge about how they had tried everything to reach me, how I had twisted the truth and cut them off without reason. But their story didn't hold. My lawyer dismantled it, point by point. She presented every ugly truth, every piece of evidence, every moment I tried, begged for them to see me, hear me, believe me. And in the end, the judge dismissed the case entirely and ordered them to pay my legal fees. It was a legal win. On paper, I had won. But sitting there as they walked out of the courtroom, my mother wiping tears, my father refusing to look at me, it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like the funeral of something I'd already lost a long time ago. After the trial, I expected silence. What I didn't expect was one last attempt, one last grasp at control, veiled in guilt and grief. A few weeks after the court's decision, I received a handwritten letter from my parents. The envelope was thick, the paper expensive, like they thought presentation could make up for everything else. The letter was long, pages of apologies, regrets, memories from my childhood. My mother's handwriting still had the same gentle slant it always did, but the words? They were heavy with the same old tactics: guilt, sentimentality, rewriting history. They said they missed me, that they couldn't sleep, that I was breaking the family apart, that my grandparents, may they rest in peace, would be ashamed of me for giving up. They still didn't get it. There was no acknowledgement of what they had done, no real apology, just a plea to move forward, to reunite at the upcoming family gathering they were planning. They'd already told relatives I would be there. It wasn't an invitation, it was a setup. I didn't respond, but I did hear from someone else, Melissa, not directly, through my cousin Rachel, who I bumped into at a gas station on a Saturday morning. She looked uncomfortable the moment she saw me, told me Melissa had started therapy, that she was doing better, that she feels bad about what happened. I nodded, politely. But inside, all I felt was distance, because none of that changed the fact that my life was nearly destroyed by a lie, that I had to fight tooth and nail to prove a truth that should have been believed from the start, that I had been cast out and slandered by the very people who once said they'd love me unconditionally. Forgiveness isn't always an act of weakness, but neither is withholding it. Sometimes you have to protect yourself, even from the ones who raised you. That reunion they planned? It happened. I didn't go. I saw pictures online, fake smiles, forced hugs, a stage performance for relatives who only knew the side of the story my parents wanted to tell. I heard later that my absence made things tense, that some relatives started asking questions, that the cracks were beginning to show. Good. Let them. I've stopped trying to fix things I didn't break. It's been nearly a year now. I still get pangs of sadness when I pass by the old family diner, when holidays come and go without a call, when I dream about childhood Christmas mornings and wake up alone. But those moments don't define me anymore. I've built something new, new routines, new friendships, a life I don't have to apologize for, one rooted in truth, in peace, in boundaries. If my parents ever truly want to rebuild something, the first brick has to be accountability. Not letters, not staged reunions, not bribery. Until then, I walk forward. Alone, maybe, but free.